This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing News. Delighted to be joined by Crocodile Dundee here in Phoenix, Arizona. I am, of course, joined by Dalton Thunder Smith. How are you, Dalton?
Yeah, all good. Nice to be in the sun. Scorching out here, but another fight week for Sonny, and it's all good.
That is a very fetching hat. I really like the hat. Where did you get the hat from?
This is from a brand called True Dark. I think they're a pretty new brand, but the clothing's pretty good. So
I think they sponsor Chris Smith. I think
they do. Yeah, they do actually. So maybe this might get me a foot in there. But no, the clothes are quality, and it's good stuff.
Shout out Through Dark. If they do give you any money or any clothes, then I want 10% of the money or some of the clothes. Shout out Sean O'Toole. Make sure you get it done, Sean. If Through Dark come through with the money, then Boxing News want 10%. But anyway, it's been a while since I've caught up with you, Dalton. I was just saying to your dad that it's very refreshing to see you without as much scar tissue around your eyes. Get to see your handsome face without any cuts on it. That, of course, came from your Jose Zepeda performance, which was, arguably, if not arguably, certainly your greatest performance so far in your professional career. Now you've had a little bit of time to reflect on that.
Yep.
What did you make of your performance?
Yeah, everything we worked on in the gym, it came together on fight night. A couple of rounds to get into it, feel his rhythm, and obviously you've got a dangerous man in front of you, so you've got to be very cautious, and you're working out how he's approaching the fight, and I think after the 2 rounds, every round up to that, I stepped it up, and then was able to get one hell of a body shot in there, and that's all she wrote. So, but yeah, happy with my performance, and he put that win there has moved me, into the top, 5 in the world. I think it was 3 with the WBC. So, yeah, great win there, and obviously a great name on my record.
Obviously, it's the first time that you've boxed somebody who's competed at the elite level, and Zepeda, he can punch. What was it like being in with somebody who has, everybody always knows the traditional saying, the last thing to go is the punch. What was it like being in with somebody who can really crack at 135 and 140?
Yeah, of course, and obviously those first couple of rounds, being wary of that. But I think the 5 rounds of the fight, I never really got hit with anything where I could feel his power. I think I was very switched on. There was nothing in the fight where, I thought, wow, this guy can bang. But, it's not like I really wanted to get clipped to find that out. But, of course, that was my job, not to get hit. And, I didn't really feel anything in there.
Time has a habit of flying by. I watched a clip of your announcement press conference. I was at your announcement press conference when you signed for Matchroom, and I thought, God, doesn't Dalton look young there? You're now 27, which makes me feel we'll push that to one side. You're now a full-grown man. People always talk about getting that man strength and developing into a fully-fledged man, 26, 27, 28. Do you feel that now? Do you feel more in your physical prime? Do you feel like you've developed more into a man?
Yeah, but that's only recently. Especially like when performances, obviously the maturity in the performances, obviously your man strength comes, but I feel like I've still got a lot of growing to do. I'm only just starting to fill out. You can look back from a year before, you can see how I'm maturing. So yeah, I think these, every fight's at the right time, and I feel like these next couple of years now I'm going to start maturing into my prime. And like I said, I'm 27, I'm still young. So from here on out now, I want to stay at the top. I want to win world titles, and I feel like I'm in a great position.
Great position indeed. And we'll talk about kind of world titles in a short while. But since the Zepeda performance, I just spoke to your dad, also your trainer, of course, in Grant Smith, and he said that, since you've been out here, people go, oh, you're the guy who stopped Jose Zepeda.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the difference since then? Because, as I said, before the fight, it was a legitimate step up, acid test against a world-level operator, coming through it in the way that you did. Have you noticed the difference?
Yeah. Obviously being over here, there's a lot of Mexican, people here, and they've definitely noticed that, but not only that, back home as well, how my profiles, it boosted my profile. Because even when we made the Zepeda fight before, it was 50-50. People was like, oh, it's Zepeda, it's Dalton, it's too early for Dalton. And it's not like Zepeda's had performances where he's been on the slide, he's only lost at the high level. So yeah, we knew we had a challenge on our hands, but I'm always confident in my ability, and I knew I was going to prove a lot of people wrong.
When people are saying stuff like that, it's a 50-50 fight or it's too soon for Dalton, does that get your juices going a bit more? Does that give you that little bit of extra in camp?
Yeah, you know, it gives you that little bit of fear factor, but it's also, I'm in camp, I'm training, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I can't wait to prove to people what I can do. You know, I've done, every time I've stepped up, you know, I've come through. You know, I've showed that little bit more. Obviously, Zepeda was that next level step up, and you know, I dealt with it easier than some of the step ups before, and you know, that's what it's about. I've proven I can go through the levels, and like I say, I'm only just getting started.
I spoke to your dad and he said that, you know, you won the British title and then won it outright in a very short space of time, but you had a lot of, you know, damage in that period of time, cuts and bits and pieces, so you had a little bit of a layoff before the Jose Zepeda fight where, from your dad's perspective, you're allowed to just settle a little bit. Did you feel the benefit of that, of just having a little bit more time out of the gym, because it had been a pretty frantic 14 months beforehand?
Yeah, you know, it's as a fighter, as an athlete, you have to let your body rest, you know, mentally and physically. You put your body through a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of strain. So sometimes you do have to let the rest is sometimes good, and I've learned that sometimes fighting one after the other is not always the best option. As long as you're fighting pretty regular and you're staying in the gym, you know, staying in the gym's the main factor. The time I had off, I'm not one to just go and, you know, sit back, you know, put a lot of weight on and then just get back in for a 10-week camp. It's about staying consistent in the gym, and you know, and that's why I always know if I have a little bit of time off, you know, there's not going to be much ring rust there because I'm always in the gym.
We mentioned earlier that you're 27 now, which is still young, but you're not 23, 24 like you were a few years ago, which is obvious. So anyway, just ignore that. It's a very silly thing to say. But you're coming into a point now, particularly in your career, where you're starting to, you know, knocking on the door for world titles, and you're becoming more of a, blow smoke up your ass, more of a star, or more, you know, people understanding who you are and what you're about. Do you feel that, I don't want to say responsibility, but now you're in the gym and you're not a young pup and you're not Grant's son, you know, you've got the opportunity of Nico Livars and you know, Junaid Bostan, young guys coming up behind you. Do you feel that sort of responsibility? Do you feel kind of becoming more of a not from an ego point of view, but from more of like a prominent figure in the gym? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah,
and like you say, it's about, you know, being a good role model to not only my gym mates, the younger kids coming through. Like you say, Junaid's a bit younger than me. I was his age, and then, you know, I was, you know, follow it like behind Sonny, getting the experience, being at the fight weeks and stuff, and now obviously that's Junaid behind me, and then, you know, a few years down the line, he's gonna have the same. You know, somebody following in his footsteps, and you know, I definitely feel like I'm, you know, that more prominent figure. You know, my name's out there a lot more now, and I'm pushing onto, you know, like you said, the world titles in probably one of the most exciting divisions in boxing right now. So yeah, it's, you know, over these next couple of years, I need to make sure I do everything right, and, you know, make sure I don't put a foot wrong.
Mentioned there about 140 pounds. It's been one of the most exciting divisions for a while. Kind of Josh Taylor was undisputed, then the belts became fragmented. Just said to your dad, like, Teofimo Lopez looked like he was going to be the man. Then he underperformed against Jermaine Ortiz. Devin Haney looked like he was going to be the man. Obviously, everything that happened with Ryan Garcia aside, it wasn't a great night for him. He subsequently vacated that belt, or champion in recess, or whatever it is. But you're there now, particularly WBC silver. You beat Jose Zepeda in better fashion than anybody else has beaten him. Do you feel ready? Do you feel like if, whether your next fight is or not, do you feel like if the call came, you'd be ready to box for a world title now? Yeah, and I think I've proven that. You know, when the level's there, you know, I can step up to it. And like I say, I'm 27. I feel like I've just come into my prime now, especially over these next couple of years. So, of course, you know, you see what happened at the weekend before. Everyone was like, oh, Matthias is the avoided fighter, and I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if Paro beats him. You know, I didn't see, of course he's a very dangerous fighter, but I seen, you know, weakness in his armour, and you know, I wasn't surprised that Paro beat him. And you know, especially there was the Russell Jr. fight. You know, he was expected to win that, so that's just boxing. You know, one loss can change the whole division and the route of people's plans, and it can be messed up. So yeah, as soon as that opportunity comes, you know, I know I'll be ready. I know it's not in your style to let's go champion and start shouting people's names out, so I'm not going to insist on you doing that. but it looks as though the WBC route you're well ranked across the board, but obviously WBC silver champion, looks like that could be the route for you potentially down the line. Sandor Martin looks like he's going to box Albert Puello for the vacant WBC. Do you think it's most likely to be the winner of that fight that you kind of box for a world title, or is there somebody else in the division that you would like to fight, be it a Teofimo Lopez or a Liam Paro?
Of course, it's fighting some of the biggest names. I think that's a good way to go, and especially if I want him to sell out my love football club, Sheffield Wednesday, bringing a big name over there, that's going to make my dreams come true. So of course, as a fighter, you want to be in the biggest fights, but whatever route I need to go, wherever the opportunities come, it is what it is. I'm a fighter, and wherever the opportunities are, I'll be ready.
I was just about to ask about Hillsborough. Obviously, now we're at the stage of the year where it's not going to happen this year because of the beautiful weather in Sheffield, as we all know. It's not quite Arizona, Dalton. But next summer, potentially, and certainly the summer after that, obviously you've got to focus on your next fight in the rear or the front view mirror or whatever it is that something that now, obviously on the back of that Zepeda performance and the potential for you to box for a world title in your next couple of fights, that's a very realistic proposition for you now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very realistic. I've got every time I fight, the support gets bigger and bigger, and like I said, I don't tend to look too far ahead. I've got to do a job on whatever's in front of me, and for me, that's the end of September. So yeah, as long as I keep doing my job, beating whoever's in front of me, those dreams are going to materialise and come into action. So I just need to do my part, stay focused, and I know everything happens for a reason, and whatever you strive towards, it'll happen.
I'll put to you in the same way I put it to your dad. Where does Adam Azim fit into your plans?
Of course, it's a big fight what everybody wants to see. He's on his own journey. I'm not sure about whether the Eubank fight's happening. That got announced.
Very quiet.
Exactly. That fight got announced when the purse bids come. Maybe that was just there to take the attention off. He was going to vacate the title. I know we've not heard anything since of that. So, but obviously, I focus on my own career. If the fight happens in the future, it happens. But as of right now, it's irrelevant. It's not going to happen. And of course, everybody wants to see it wherever I go. When you fight Adam Azim, that's all I heard before the Zepeda fight. And look, if the fight happens, it'll happen.
And it's always been very respectful for me. I remember the first time I met Adam was the first time I met you, when you were both in the camp with Luke Campbell for the Ryan Garcia fight. So you go back away with him, and there's always been that respect between both of you. But obviously, as fans of the sport, we love those domestic dust-ups.
Exactly, and of course, I want to be in those big fights. Even if the fight got made when it was for the European, I'd have been buzzing for that, because I know everybody wanted to see the fight, and you get to prove who's the best fighter. But of course, it wasn't meant to be. It didn't happen. He vacated the title, but like I said, we're both young, and I'd want the fight to happen earlier than later. Because that's you don't want it to be if it does happen, you don't want people to be like, but it's too late. It didn't happen when we wanted to see it. So yeah, of course, whenever it's fresh and people want to see it, that's when you want it to happen. But of course, there's going to be plenty of big fights for me over the next couple of years throughout my career. But what the public want, that's what makes sense.
What do you make of Adam's development as a fighter? What have you been impressed with? What have you maybe not been so impressed with?
I think every fighter, they have fights or they have parts in the career where they've not looked the best. I've had it in mind where I've just had some mediocre performances, but that's where you learn to, see what you need to get right. You can't believe the hype all the time. And sometimes you get a bit complacent, but stylistically wise, I think he has done pretty much the same. We haven't seen him change things up. But obviously we know the weaknesses we've seen. But like I said, I don't wish bad on anybody. And for me, I want Adam to keep on winning, because it just makes the fight bigger and bigger. I wouldn't want him to take a loss, or I wouldn't get joy out of another man's loss. Look, if he keeps on winning, I keep on winning, that fight's going to get bigger and bigger.
So if I say I'm a genie, I'm not a genie, but say I'm a genie, and Okay, just make it easier. Rather than going down a lamp rubbing thing, it could get a bit weird. If you're in one corner at Hillsborough, let's say it's next summer,
Yeah.
it's a world title fight, who's in the other corner? You can pick anyone in the other corner. Who do you want to be in the other corner? Is it Teofimo Lopez? Is it Devin Haney? Who's in the other corner?
I think for me, it's got to be a big name. It's probably a star of the game. So that'd be likes of, like I said, Teofimo, Devin Haney. They're some of the biggest stars in boxing right now. So, of course, if they're in the opposite corner, it's going to be one hell of a fight. People are going to get excited for it.
Okay, right. Before we wrap things up, we are, of course, here in very, 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 very sunny Arizona for Sonny Edwards. His return against Adrian Curiel this weekend. Obviously, the last time we were over here with Sonny didn't necessarily go his way against Bam Rodriguez, but a real fight this weekend against Adrian Curiel, and a fight where he has to be back to his best. Yeah,
most definite, and especially at the level Sonny's at, they're all going to be hard fights. Of course, he came up short last time, but like you said, there's no shame in that. Bam's one hell of a fighter. He didn't phase Sonny one bit. Didn't knock his confidence, and he's proven that by taking the fight he's in next against Curiel. I'll pronounce it Curiel. Great fighter. But for me, I think stylistically wise, I think he's going to be great for Sonny. Obviously, he's got to be very wary. He's a Mexican, the tough, the game, and I just think the longer the fight goes on, Sonny's going to find more openings with him, and I'm expecting a pretty dominant performance as the fight goes on from Sonny. Okay, well, Dalton, I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing News, and we look forward to an announcement on what lies ahead for you. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Top man. Cheers, mate. That was really good.
Nice one.
Good stuff.
Thank you.